May I please have your full and undivided attention? It is time for the Paranormal Rundown. Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth-Smythe. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all fans of the paranormal, the supernatural, the unusual, the entertaining, the terrifying, the horrifying, and those things that go bump in the night and in the daytime too. This is the one and only Paranormal Rundown, where the lads, the gang of nerds, choose from over 2,700 carefully curated paranormal topics. This is Season 2, Episode 6. Unfortunately, Father Mike has been abducted by pirates to be held captive on Jekyll Island. But we learn about umbrella monsters, the psychic entanglement, the spirits of animals, Resurrection Mary, and how wrong and silly Vicar Manson can actually be. Which, believe me, is quite silly. So pull up a chair, grab some popcorn, and let's get ready for the one and only Paranormal Rundown.
Hello, everyone. This is Vicar Manson. As I am putting together this final show, I have a mea culpa I must offer. We were recording this episode with Sylvia Shults, and we're 35 minutes in when I realized that I had not engaged recording. Yeah, I know I'm not the first person to do that, but sure does make you feel dumb. We were at that point getting ready to talk about the ghosts of dinosaurs. But we missed quite a bit of good stuff. Don't worry, we'll cycle back around to it. After all, we have more paranormal topics than anybody else in the world. I'm going to start making that brag, because someone's got to come up with a topic that's not in the list of 2,700. So let's just start right in, and you'll get to hear my mea culpa one more time. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Rundown.
That means we get to talk about ghost dinosaurs again.
We could talk about dinosaur ghosts, yeah. All right. Tell you what, I will do an intro away from the from the group talking, so we don't have to take that time. Can I tell this one story real quick, and then I think I can get us back online? And everybody, I genuinely apologize.
No problem.
This is I should be stupidity rather than malice. Okay. However, I do know that in the future, my Paranormal Rundown sticker back there is going to have "Are you recording?" beneath it. All right. So my mother lived with my sister in their house in Kentucky they figured she had lived there about 2 years before she died. She lived there 10 years. You know, she was one of these people who did not want to let go. She did not want to die. And she finally died about 3 years ago. And lately, they have a dog named Sadie, which is like the dog you were talking about. They have a dog named Sadie. And lately, in the middle of the night, she's been hearing this very sharp, "Marty." It's a very clear, single word, Marty sound. Mm-hmm. It seems to be coming from downstairs, which is where my mother stayed. Just this very strong, loud Marty. And when she says that, Sadie will hop out of the bed, run downstairs, and stand and stare at a particular spot. And that's it. There's no more to the story other than, well, Marty, is there any fear, or do you feel anything that's terribly wrong? Nope, I don't.
All right, there's totally a ghost there.
Definitely something going on.
Well, I mean, but she's not feeling like this is anything malicious or anything. It's just,
Good.
or malignant. And Sadie will just sort of sits there and wags her tail.
Just looks. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good sign.
Indeed. Yes.
Not growling or barking.
Can I recommend, and believe me, I will give many mea culpas during the show, that as JJ has limited time tonight, that I'm fairly certain there are things that are in JJ's mind that would make good paranormal rundown topics. Maybe you'd like to throw one of those out, JJ.
I actually want to go back to the monster topic we were talking about before.
Excellent.
Because I am a connoisseur of monsters.
Lovely.
Indeed.
Especially Japanese ones.
Well, I was about to say. So I started off loving everything monsters 3 years old, and I have the nightmares to prove it. And in fact, my mom, whenever a relative would ask, what should I get JJ? Well, they wouldn't call me JJ, but what should I get him for whatever occasion it was? And my mom would just say, just find the ugliest toy you possibly can that's of a monster, and he will absolutely love it. And I did. I absolutely loved it. And this fascination extended from everything from true, like, cryptid stories. You don't know the area that I am from, and I'm just going to give you a real quick snapshot. Indian burial mounds everywhere, a graveyard every mile. I spent most of my time in graveyards, even buried my own headstone when I was 6 years old with the rest of my family. I was 30 minutes away from Adams, Tennessee, home of the Bell Witch, which I went to many a time as a kid because I loved it. It's nothing but a spiritual hotspot. Everything around me was. And I ate it up. And I would collect every story about monsters I could find, whether it was the werewolf that was living in the park in Dixon, Tennessee, to the solid white goat man that would run around White Bluff, Tennessee. I loved every single bit of it. And that extended also into kaiju. I loved Godzilla. I remember my mom waking me up at 3 a.m. in the morning one time going, there's a Godzilla movie on TV. Let's watch it. And I was sold. But
that's a good mother.
Your mom's awesome.
My mom is awesome. And it extended that way. Like, I was seriously considering going into cryptozoology as a field when I was in high school. Luckily, I didn't, but I was still fascinated by it. And then I got really into Japanese culture. And once I learned about the Yurei and the Yokai, I lost my mind. And it has been that way ever since. And the fact that this season we got a Junji Ito adaptation of Uzumaki, it just touches my heart. So.
Please tell the audience who Uzumaki is.
Uzumaki in Japanese means spiral. And it is, Junji Ito is the premier mangaka or manga writer of horror in Japan. And he has written some amazing things, from Uzumaki, which is probably his most well-known work, to The Enigma at Amigata Fault, to Hanging Balloons, and the list just keeps going on and on and on and on. And Uzumaki actually did a Southern Demonology Bite episode about it. It looks like a manga spring to life because it's all done in black and white CG work, and it's beautiful. It's actually very well done.
You got Josh in the background writing something about some episode. It was insane.
Yeah, he mentioned something earlier about kappas and kitsune. And yeah, you're right. Those are both great Japanese monsters. Kappas are they're water demons, and they have the way they stay alive is they have a little indentation on their head, which is filled with water. And if the water spills, they die. So that's how you defeat a kappa, is to make them bend down and spill the water out of their head. I never said it made any sense. It's just weird. And then kitsune are the nine-tailed fox demons.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those before, but I've never seen the one with the water on top of their head.
Yeah, just bizarre little creatures. I work at a public library, and I just checked in a book yesterday, I think it was, that it was talking about different monsters, and I wish I'd known somehow that we were going to be talking about monsters. I would have brought it home. But there's a monster, and I don't remember which culture this is from, but it's a giant that has an eye in the bottom of its foot, and that's how it sees it as it hops around. It hops on one foot because the other foot has to see where it's going.
Okay.
That was news to me.
That is interesting.
That was a new one on me.
Well, then again, I mean, you get Japanese yokai, which, for example, the butthole eye monster, which is literally just a butt on legs, and it has an eye where its sphincter is.
I knew that was going to come up.
Yeah.
I knew. There was just no way that we were going to pass that.
So, JJ, let me ask you, is this something that came out of classic Japanese culture? Is this the Japanese equivalent of a Beavis and Butthead sitting around?
No, it actually it's a very old tale, but I have to say my absolute favorite, no matter what Japanese monster is brought up, it's always going to be Kamikaze Obake.
All right.
And it is a umbrella monster that usually is depicted with one giant eye and a very long tongue. And actually, in a lot of horror movies, he's depicted as kind of the comedy relief monster. But it's just, he's fantastic. You can't help but love him. In fact, like the media company that I am going to found one day, and I'm not going to say the name of it, but the symbol is going to be of Kamikaze Obake doing a flying kick in the air. So,
it's not going to be a butthole demon?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
I want to keep it more PG-13.
Well, what else?
And then you've got toilet-bound Hanako-kun. The haunted toilets.
Hanako-chan.
Yeah.
All right. So wait. Haunted toilets?
Hanako-chan. Yeah, that's
Hanako-chan.
Yeah, yeah. So
it's like Moaning Myrtle.
Which part of that word means toilet?
None.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Yeah, Hanako is the name, and then Chan is the honorific that just means, younger girl.
Okay.
Kun is there actually is an anime out that's in its second season now, which is called Hanako-kun. And it's a re-envisioning of the Hanako-chan story.
Okay.
As if he's a boy.
I'm just, again, public librarian. I'm going by the manga that we have.
And that's a very popular one. It is.
Yeah.
But Hanako-chan, so typically the story goes is that if you find yourself in the third floor bathroom, typically, and you go to the very last stall of the women's restroom, and you close the door, and then you invoke her, and the idea is escaping me. I think you knock 3 times. But anyway, Hanako-chan will then come to the outside of that toilet, and usually it means that you are going to die a very grisly death, as most Yurei stories in Japanese culture. Right?
They kind of all end like that, don't they?
The vast majority of them do.
Well, not all, but yeah, that's.
And that's where all the fun is, right there.
Well, how does I mean, you're like Moaning Myrtle, we're talking, coming up out of the toilet. How do they show up?
She typically comes to the outside of the door.
Okay.
If memory serves. And then the door is either ripped apart or she slithers underneath, and then you're hers.
All right, Dave, you got any good monsters?
No, I was never into like scary monsters because, as a kid, as a teenager, even as a young adult, total wuss. Horror movies absolutely terrified me. I didn't like them. I didn't want to watch them. That's more of I hadn't even watched all of like the Halloween movies and stuff like that until a couple years back when we started watching a series each year leading up to Halloween. And, it just was never my thing. So I was a big scaredy cat.
Oh,
you wouldn't guess it now, right? I like to go hang out in the dark and see what I can find. And I love watching horror movies now, although I'm still not like, I mean, monster movies, okay. I like the more closer to life, scary stuff, but with a paranormal or supernatural aspect, usually demonic. That stuff, I enjoy that. But
well, most of my life, I've wanted my monsters to conform to the rules of physical causality. Meaning, if I put a big enough bullet in you, you're gonna
or a silver bullet. I'd be okay with that.
Or a silver bullet, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Chris James' last episode is about werewolves, and he's talking about, well, it doesn't take a silver bullet; it just takes a bunch of bullets
that's fair
to kill them. And so Chris is taking this episode from one of my last episodes, where I was talking about East German werewolves.
Those would definitely qualify as monsters. Yeah.
Sylvia, did you hear that episode at all? Or
no. And speaking of watching movies, that I haven't had a chance to listen to the Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose episode. You sent me the link to. I haven't had a chance to look.
Don't worry about that.
Did you end up watching the movie?
Several times. Yeah, several times. Yeah, I'm waiting for other people to watch it, and I'm predicting their reactions to it.
Oh, okay, fun. Yeah, I need to find out where it's streaming now. I want to watch it again.
Because people in this group tend to have rather strong reactions.
I feel so sorry for those people too. I would never ever do something like that. I'm probably the most knee-jerk opinionated person here, so that was making fun of me.
Okay.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because JJ doesn't have an opinion often, but when he does, it's like,
oh, it's vehement.
It's abrupt.
It's abrupt. All right, but look, I'm going to go there just for a minute. Then I'm going to go back to the ghost dinosaurs. The thing I saw, I'm not even really I don't ever really call it a monster. I mean, it's a thing of nature. Okay, it's something that exists out there, at least in my mind. It obeys the laws of physical causality. At least I think it does. That's not a monster. That's something you want to avoid. But so is a 28-foot crocodile.
I would consider that to be a monster. That's just me. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe if it's behind glass, it's not a monster. But if you're out in nature with it, it's a monster.
Well, Sylvia, you've known me long enough to know that I'm somewhat weird. And so I got to spend some extra time in Germany after the wall had come down.
Ooh.
So we're talking about 91, 92, that area. It took them years to turn East Germany into a Western society, to a Western culture. And in the old city,
which really was just like the Soviet pictures, these big concrete block apartment buildings, dull, dismal, dank, no flowers, no color, people in gray coats kind of, walking around.
Yeah.
I met a colonel who had been both in the Soviet army and in the East German army. And he was one of the people one of his jobs was to keep people in East Germany. They didn't want you leaving. Okay. And of course, the Berlin Wall was there, barbed wire, guys with guns. But then they had all of the rest of East Germany that was just farmland. And for years and years, anybody could just kind of go out to that part of the country, walk across the border, and there really wasn't any way to stop them. Too much land to cover. Okay, so yeah, they put some wire out there. They had some sensors and this kind of thing. Now, I called this Colonel Zimmerman in my episode. And whether Colonel Zimmerman was jacking with me, which is 100% possible, and I made that clear in the episode, or he was telling me the truth, or he was telling me his understanding of the truth. His statement was that they had Soviet-generated werewolves that they could assign to certain sections of East Germany to patrol that fence line or to patrol that borderline, both to keep East Germans in and to keep anyone else out.
Cool.
And he called them, well, he had, I can't say it like he did because it's Werewolf, Werewolf, very guttural werewolf kind of thing. But he called them creatures of nightmare. He said, they were creatures of nightmare. And in the story that he was telling, they had werewolves. They had controlled werewolves, and they were sympathetic to East German goals of keeping people in East Germany, or they had been trained like animals to do that. Now that's a monster.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And
Controlled
both meanings
werewolves.
of the word.
Yeah, that's
well, and not entirely out there. We did an episode with Tracy Bush, right, where we talked about someone she interviewed on her podcast, someone she knew who government agency tracked all the cryptids and was talking about dogmen and dogmen as military, right?
Right. They were chipped. Sylvia, this guest was talking, he had a database. So I don't know which county you live in Illinois, but let's say it's Jefferson County, because almost every state has a Jefferson County.
Yeah, I think Illinois does too.
Yeah, almost every state has a Jefferson County. But you would say, hello, I live in Jefferson County. Can you tell me what I've got? Be tight for a moment. You say, yeah, let's see. You've got 4 Bigfoot in there, and one of them's pregnant. And you've got 6 dogmen, and you got 9 werewolves.
That is so cool.
Oh, look at JJ shaking his head.
God help us all.
In Tazewell County, we do have the Coal Hollow Monster.
Ooh.
Please tell us about the Coal Hollow Monster.
Okay, Coal Hollow Monster. Well, I live in Pekin in Tazewell County, and between my town and the town where I work, East Peoria, there is a road called Coal Hollow Road. And in the early 1970s, there were people that were seeing a cryptid on Coal Hollow Road, which became known as the Coal Hollow Monster. And this cryptid was basically a skunk ape sort of thing. And people would speak of being in their cars along the road and having stopped to do something. There was one woman who was out picking black raspberries in June, and she came across this skunk ape sort of thing, and of course lost all her berries because she panicked and freaked and ran away. And There you go. See, Coal Hollow Road Monster.
Right. Yes.
And it's got a fandom and everything. So there were people that spoke of rolling down the windows and getting this powerfully pungent, nasty, sewery smell from this creature. And there was somebody who swore that they were in like some small car, like a Volkswagen Beetle or something, and the monster lifted up the front of the car so that the wheels weren't touching the ground, so they couldn't drive away. And then it eventually got bored, I guess, and put the car down, and they were able to escape. The thing is that some teenagers in Creve Coeur, there was a posse from Creve Coeur that went out, and people in this area kind of make fun of Creve Coeur a little bit. There's a joke that says toothpaste was invented in Creve Coeur, and you can tell because if it had been invented anywhere else, they would have called it teeth paste. But we call it Creve Tucky and everything like that. So there's not a lot of respect for Creve Coeur around here. But there was a posse that went out searching for the Coal Hollow monster, and the only casualty was some guy who was carrying his .22 and tripped over a log and shot himself in the calf. So that was the worst thing that happened when this posse went out. But after the posse came back,
did he die, or did he just?
No. It was but a scratch. It was just some.
Just but a scratch. Okay.
Just a flesh wound.
Merely a flesh wound.
Merely a flesh wound.
But that after the posse came back, not having found the Coal Hollow monster, there were some teenagers that fessed up to making these footprints and leading everyone on with this Coal Hollow monster and cutting out these big wooden feet and making footprints all over the place. And Kohomo is his nickname. And they said, oh, yeah, it was just us all the time. And people said, oh, okay, that's fine. But there's still the eyewitness accounts of the woman picking berries and the people who said that their car had been lifted up. And there are several other eyewitness accounts of the skunk ape creature. And, what about those? What about those eyewitness accounts? What were they seeing?
Well, Sylvia, I have been dying to ask you this. I know it's not close, but speaking of Illinois and creepy places, have you ever been to Metropolis, Illinois?
I have. I didn't find it particularly creepy, but my in-laws used to live in Golconda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we would drive through Metropolis from Golconda on our way to Paducah.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, I had a distant family member who would live up in Java. So we would always go through Metropolis, and then that's where the riverboat was. And so a lot of my older family members would go gamble their lives away there. But to me, I have never been to a creepier town than Metropolis. I don't know what it is about it, but it just puts me in mind of if Stephen King grew up in Metropolis, we would get even better stories out of him than if it was set in Maine. But maybe that's just me. I can't.
What makes it creepy?
It's the atmosphere. I don't know if it was the creepy Superman cutout at the first little restaurant store that you would go to, and I always had to stop and get a picture taken because I loved that thing, or if it was just the uniform houses, or I don't know what it was, but I hated going to that little town more than life itself. It scared the crap out of me for some reason.
So it wasn't
creepy
even
not in a like a haunted way. Creepy in a something here is off,
an unsettling way.
Correct.
So this was not like I'm talking about this frightening, pleasant, frisson kind of feeling. This was something oppressive that you didn't want to be a part of at all.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Huh. Well, like I said, I only drove through it. I never really stopped there. I mean, for creep factors, you've got Alton, Illinois. That's a super creepy place.
What is
makes
creepy
that
about Alton?
place? Yeah.
Oh boy, it's right on the river. It's on Alton is in a place where the Mississippi, the Ohio breaks off of the Mississippi River. So it's kind of in the creek of those two rivers. And speaking of cryptids, you've got the Piasa bird there. And there's a cliff face.
There's a drawing there of that,
Yeah,
isn't there?
yeah.
Huge cliff drawing.
Beautiful, beautiful painting of the Piasa bird in Alton. And Alton is just crawling with ghosts. Oh my goodness. It's one of the most haunted towns in Illinois. You've got the Unitarian Church, which closed recently. They don't have ghost tours anymore. You've got the Mineral Springs Hotel, where Troy Taylor's Museum of Haunted Objects is, and his museum of weird and creepy things. It's not necessarily all haunted objects, it's just weird and creepy things, which is fabulous. You've got Alton Cemetery, where, what's his name is buried? Oh, Lovejoy. There you go. America's most haunted small town. And yeah, Alton's a fun place to visit. Oh, the other thing in Alton is it used to be the site of a Confederate prison, a prison where Confederate prisoners were held.
Right.
The prison doesn't exist anymore. It's a parking lot now, but there is like a bit of the wall still remaining.
Right.
But I talked to someone who told me that he was there after dark and saw a horse and rider, an officer on a horse riding towards him.
Mm-hmm.
That was super cool. And right down the street, like half a block away from the Mineral Springs Hotel, is the Haunted Pie Shop that has wonderful pie. And
what happens at the Haunted Pie Shop?
Oh, there's a resident
Slices
ghost.
disappear.
They serve
It's a resident
blueberry.
ghost, and it's just a really fun place to go for because they have amazing pie.
That may have been cut out, but JJ just had the best joke of the day.
What was it, JJ?
That they serve blueberry pie.
Blueberry pie. Yeah.
Oldie but a goodie. Sorry.
Well, on Southern Demonology on the Discord server, there's a whole section for dad jokes.
I need to contribute more to that.
He's the only Discord server I know with a dad joke section. But
it's the
That's
pinnacle of
amazing
humor.
finding these links for us. That is so cool. Thank you.
Yeah, Josh does a good job.
Yeah.
All right, I got a couple of things I want to ask anybody out here, but kind of looking towards Sylvia.
Okay.
The kids come forward and they say, "I was us." Hey, look, here's our big old Bigfoot, and here's the light we use to scare tourists and all this kind of stuff. And immediately the whole thing just goes away.
Right.
The entire media, anybody who was interested before says, "Oh, well, that's what it was.
Oh, it's just kids.
This is what it was." What is it about people who do not delve into the paranormal very much that makes them say any plausible explanation eliminates the need to concern ourselves with any other explanation? Okay, so certainly it's plausible that the kids were out there doing it, but that's not the only possible explanation that could explain what happened there, especially with the other eyewitnesses.
I think that it's more comfortable that way.
Maybe so. Mm-hmm.
That's my first instinct, is to say, well, people just don't want there to be things that go bump in the night because that's uncomfortable and spooky and scary. And oh, well, it was just teenagers, and that's it. That's put paid to it. That's put an end to it, and we can move on, like you said. I think it's so much more fun.
Oh, me too.
To realize that there are things that go bump in the night.
There was a guy in Florida, somewhere over by Tampa, who made these lead dinosaur feet. And they weighed something like 30, 40 pounds each. And he was going out to the beach and making big old lead dinosaur feet footprints.
Nice.
That's great.
And of course he was going out into the water, and stomping them up out through the water, and they'd come around the beach some, and they'd take them back out to the water.
People are awesome.
This is a tiny bit off topic, but one of the best Christmas cards I ever saw was put out by the Field Museum. And the Field Museum, of course, is where Sue is, the T-Rex.
The T-Rex,
the skeleton called Sue. And the Christmas card, the year Sue was installed, was it was the north steps or whatever of the museum with snow covering them and a little bit of garland along the top. And dinosaur footprints coming down the stairs.
Nice.
Adorable.
Like Sue had escaped. Did you ever read as a child the books, the Mad Scientist Club books?
No. I must have had a deprived childhood.
What's that?
I must have had a deprived childhood.
Well, it's
Mad Scientist Club. I read a lot when I was a kid. I think I can be forgiven for missing.
I think you can be forgiven. I mean, you've got books that I haven't read, but I can share with you these things that were cool. It's about these 4 or 5 nerdy boys who are always getting into mischief. And one of the things they do is they decide, hey, you know what? Found this old skiff the other day out in the swamp. Why don't we turn it into a sea monster?
I love it.
and of course they're all, very smart kids, and they, have their father's workshops, and they figure out a way to have remote controlled flashing eyes and to make it blow smoke and to make some kind of sound. Dave, did you ever read these books?
No, I didn't, but I'm wishing I would have.
Right?
JJ, you missed them too?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Good. I stuck to pretty much epic fantasy when I was growing up.
I read a mix. I remember reading the Alfred Hitchcock books, not the horror books, but he wrote a series of books about this trio of youths in California. And I don't remember the name of them.
I've never even heard of these.
They were a detective type of thing.
Yeah.
Sylvia, you got stepped on there. You've heard of them? Do you?
I have, yeah. I'm a librarian.
Of course, yeah. Oh, yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
Have them. Gosh, it's not the library I work at now does not have them, but I think I remember seeing them I've worked at 3 libraries in my lifetime, and one of them was Bloomington Library, and I think the Bloomington Library had them.
Yeah, they were really good. I mean, it was the 3 investigators, yeah. And, it was sort of, I enjoyed all the Hardy Boys books, and I read a lot too. But I read all the fantasy and the science fiction I could as well, but I did enjoy detective stuff. And I enjoyed that. They would go on mysteries, but Mad Scientists, I like the sound of that. I missed that one.
Well, I've got the book somewhere. Still got my childhood copy of it, all tattered and torn, and I never get rid of stuff like that.
It does make you wonder how many of these sightings or things that people catch out of the corner of their eye out in the woods or whatever are something that somebody made up. I mean, intentionally to create something.
You mean a story they made up, or stuff they put out there, or both? Stuff
that they've put out there, stuff that they've they've gone through, and not, I don't want to say a scam, but just something for fun, like the guy with the dinosaur prints.
Oh, I'm sure there are plenty of things like that they start off for fun, but they get out of hand.
Right. But even if it's just for fun, go ahead, JJ.
Or if it's something in which could be easily construed another fashion. I got 2 case in points. look slightly different than each other. The first one is there was a series of videos. There's 3 of them. I've shared them in my Discord server, but they are of a woman who is telling the story about how her roommate claimed that he had sold his soul to the devil.
Mm.
And it's creepy, but I've shared that, and I've had one other person who I respect their opinion a great deal, who's come back and goes, it can be easily explained by drugs or by mental illness or whatever. And yeah, that's true.
Which it could
In
be,
fact,
yes.
it's probably more likely that is the explanation, but yet my soul rebels against the idea of that. I want it to be that he sold his soul to the devil because it makes it just a heck of a lot more fun. And then you have people that are out there and attempting to prove that these things are true by some of the oddest methods. Like I ran across a video the other day of a young woman who was saying that she had gone through a statistical analysis of Bigfoot sightings and of the ones that could be attached to a particular day and time. She calculated the lunar phase of that date, and because her hypothesis was that these things are prey animals, and of course she said that full-throated without any, consolidation that maybe they're not. But she said, yeah, they're prey animals, so they're going to behave in a very particular fashion during lunar maximum and lunar minimum time periods.
She's saying that Bigfoot is a prey animal?
What's preying on them?
No, she said that it's a predator animal.
Oh, okay.
Predator. Okay. I was
thinking, man, I wanted to see those
really,
guys.
Yeah,
I don't want to know what's the predator for a Bigfoot.
Right.
But anyway, she then went on and was going through. She calculated like the p-values for the statistical. I'm just like, that doesn't prove crap. If you've ever have gone through PubMed and looked at the meta-analyses of studies that have been done, none of that crap proves anything. And it's just, anyway.
Well, there's a great, somebody here has got to have heard it, comedy routine by a guy named Brother Dave Gardner. Brother Dave Gardner. Okay.
I knew a David Gardner when I was young. But
anyway,
I don't think,
It's a Southern thing, and there's a guy who's being paid $100 to spend a night in a haunted house so this other guy can sell the house. He said, then, I want some catfish, I want some Dr. Peppers, I want some moon pies. And so I'm going to stay in this house all night long, and all night long little strange critters start coming through. First there's a little dwarf kind of guy or elf kind of guy with knobby knees, and then a bigger one, and then some kind of thing with tentacles and all this kind of stuff. And finally this 9-10 foot tall, and all of these critters are asking him, are you going to be here when John gets here?
I know the story.
And then the big guy comes. Finally, at the end, there's this 11-foot, hairy, mossy thing with fangs and teeth who just reaches down and eats coals and stuff like this. And he says, are you going to be here when John gets here? And the answer is, well, if you ain't John, I'm gone. But I want to see the thing that preys on Bigfoot.
Definitely. Yeah, but from a distance.
But anyway, JJ, but she did do at least an attempt at some serious statistical analysis of that.
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting hypothesis, but it still doesn't prove anything. But it just, I found it interesting nonetheless. So,
well, JJ, let me ask this. What proof would you need? What would be the next step for what she did to make it proof?
I would need to see video evidence of a thing like that.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of video evidence out there.
No, none.
It's never
have not been debunked.
Let's talk Bigfoot from the Dankworth Smythe perspective for just a few precious moments. While JJ is correct in stating that there is no current video or film captures of Bigfoot that are utterly unassailable, there are several that seem, at least to the Dankworth Smythe family, one of the oldest and most prestigious paranormal butler families in the entire British Empire, to be worthy of careful consideration. The foremost among these is of course the Patterson-Gimlin film. It has been a focus of supporters, debunkers, counter-debunkers, etc., since it was first presented to the public in 1967. In recent years a number of first-generation copies have emerged, some of which have been digitized at very high native resolution. Several frames in these digitized captures seem to show anatomical evidence that would be extremely difficult to fabricate at the time the film was made. Additionally, the supposed Hollywood quality suit that Bob Hieronymus has shown seems to have very little to do with the creature seen in the Patterson-Gimlin film. Frame 350 is of particular interest. However, it is clear that there were economic shenanigans when the film was first released, leaving a very tangled web indeed. There seems to be a deeply powerful human need for creatures such as Bigfoot to exist. But as my father and I are not human, our need is one of simply discerning and understanding the truth. We are both believers in the authenticity of the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Have you heard of the Enfield monster, Enfield terror, Enfield horror?
Yes.
Not the one in England. We're talking one in Illinois. It was a 3-legged Bigfoot.
Not familiar with that. You say Enfield, and I immediately think Poltergeist, and that's in England. So
yeah. But anyway, they had a Bigfoot that apparently had 2 arms and head and all this fur, and then 3 legs.
Weird.
We'll get.
But it was debunked. It turns out it was 2 Bigfoot in a sack race.
All right, there's the title for the show.
Enfield Horror, yeah.
No horror, just the sack race, man. All right, we've never been able to talk about the ghost dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah. Hang on just a second.
Vic, how are you?
Ashamed.
Hey, listen, let me tell you. I feel bad because not long after I got on, I was going to ask you,
Are you recording?
And then somebody said something and I got distracted and I didn't ask you. Usually that's my job. So
yeah, but it's
we both failed.
Like not scrubbing in for surgery or something. But
the guy's last name was Warren. It's Joshua Warren.
Yeah, I've heard of Joshua Warren. Yeah.
Pet ghosts.
Animal encounters from beyond the grave.
Beyond the grave.
Oh.
And this. It all began one dark blue evening when the Jacksons' young son Adam went to the barn for his chores. Near the front of the barn was a massive creature, mist and smoke churning around it. It hung in the air, slowly flapping its enormous wings. And someone photographed it. Witnesses sometimes describe them as huge reptiles or dragons. With time, someone was able to capture photographic evidence for these entities. And
I have seen this photo.
Yeah.
I've seen this photo. Look,
you can see the wings.
There probably aren't many paranormal photos out there that I haven't seen at some point. And I remember them. But I've seen that photo. But that would get my attention if that, that shade or that mist or whatever were out by my barn. I mean, when you go out your front door tomorrow morning, you saw one of those, that would get your attention.
It certainly would, yes.
It would get...
Sorry, the dog just came up and was eating something nasty, and I could smell it on her breath.
So it's interesting, the idea of a dinosaur. So when you were saying dinosaur, first in my head I'm thinking a big brontosaurus, right, walking across
Yeah.
the field.
I was thinking of a ghost of a velociraptor just popping up.
Yeah. Oh
That'd be
Lord,
terrifying.
that would absolutely be terrifying. But I wonder if where was that? Did it say where?
I think it was South Carolina, but
Because I'm thinking like Mothman would not be that different.
right, and it does. The book does mention Mothman. Okay, this is the Jackson Farm in Lancaster, South Carolina. And this is the place
I've
where
been
the
to
ghost
Lancaster, South
horses
Carolina many
is.
times.
Yeah, this is the ghost horses too.
Well, we had this conversation on animal spirits a show or two ago, and I guess sort of the counterbalance was, would a an animal have a soul? That was kind of the right, something to move on, to carry on after the body died.
Sure.
And one of the things that I proposed was that the possibility that maybe the animal spirit is not what you're seeing. So if you have someone who passes and they have issues to work through, right? Somebody's sort of stuck, whatever it is, they've got to work through, and they're reliving or re-experience things. Maybe the animals are a part of that scene. The cat, the dog, the horse, whatever it is associated with the person who passed, who is reliving or re-experiencing something. We're catching a glimpse of what they're experiencing while they're trying to work through unresolved issues. What do you think of that idea?
At first blush, that sounds like it makes sense, but what about all the other animal ghost sightings that have nothing to do with humans at all? Like the horse that was stuck in the barn over the winter and died trying to get out of the barn and wasn't able to. And
someone just forgot it was there or couldn't get back to it or something, or
what's the story about this? Yeah, I think it just got abandoned. At any rate, it was winter time, and the horse was not able to get out of the barn, and it was not able to escape the barn,
right?
And died there, and still haunts the barn. So yeah, I mean, there's so many stories about ghost animals that have nothing whatsoever to do with humans. So I don't understand why it is human dependent. I don't know why there has to be a human involved, because so often there isn't a human involved.
Well, there doesn't have to be. It was an idea, right? It's a thought of, most of the places where I have investigated. Now, I haven't seen an animal spirit myself, but my wife has. And the group that she saw a cat, and the group that we investigated with, several other people have seen, and usually it seems to be cats in places that we had investigated. But all of those places had activity, right? These are places that were haunted, not demonic stuff, not anything negative, just normal human haunted type places. And so, the question was, are you seeing in that, is it the spirit of a cat that was there, or is it something related to the person that was passed there that was haunting the place? But that is a good point, is stories where there's no person involved at all.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that there's a human spirit haunting the place, and the human is used to having a cat or dog around,
right?
Mm-hmm. And manifests it
the
same way they would manifest their appearance by being dressed in a Victorian era article of clothing.
Exactly. It's a prop in the show, right? That they're going through, that they're experiencing.
Or could it be the actual cat who's along for the ride?
Could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, once again, I've had 15 years to develop this psychic bond with this human. I'm dead. I've been dead a while.
Mm-hmm.
15 years down the road, the human dies. Boop.
Yeah.
Psychic entanglement.
Cat's hanging out, right?
Yeah, cat's hanging out.
Entanglement.
Psychic entanglement. See, that's almost paranormal word salad. Where I could.
No, I think
I like it. I'm doing it.
Psychic entanglement is definitely, it's paranormal word salad adjacent at least.
But
but I could totally see that being a thing.
But it's at least a concept that you can get your mind around. So you said something a few minutes ago that I really want to return to, if you don't mind. You used the term spiritual hotspot or paranormal hotspot or something like that. A place where there was an inordinate amount of spiritual or paranormal activity. Is that the way the world is? I mean, are there places that are more amenable to that happening? Are there places where the land itself brings that about?
Absolutely.
I mean, because there have been people pretty much everywhere, except in the extreme far north and far south. So what causes those spiritual paranormal hotspots, in your view?
Well, like Alton, for example, it's in the Fork of Two Rivers. A perfect example of this is the Peoria State Hospital at Bartonville, the hilltop at Bartonville.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do my talks on this, I always say there are so many things. It's like a perfect storm of things that will cause a place to be haunted. In Bartonville, you've got it's just several hundred yards away from the Illinois River, which is the longest river in the state. So you've got a lot of running water there. The entire hilltop where the asylum buildings sat and still do sit, some of them, is crisscrossed with ravines that have running water in them at some point in time and during the year. There is a lot of limestone in the area as well. And limestone is a substance that is considered to be a great conductor of paranormal energy because it's made from the skeletons of little sea creatures. And so it's made from something that was once alive, and that in paranormal circles, that's considered to be a very good conductor of paranormal energy. So yeah, it absolutely can be the physical properties of a place that make a place more or less conducive to paranormal activity. And then you've got ley lines, which I don't really understand. So I don't
either.
So what I know about is limestone and running water.
Well, see, every time I hear ley lines, it's always being presented by some very erudite British guy in a tweed suit, and he's saying something like, "Of course, these are where the ley lines come forward or together," and I zone out.
Patches on the elbows.
Yeah, patches on the elbows. It doesn't seem to be much of an American thing.
Well,
no, I don't know about that.
I can see it being an American thing. The very first time I heard about ley lines was my dad telling me about it, in reference to Chicago and Archer Avenue.
Really?
Oh yeah. The Chicago suburbs has I don't know exactly how many ley lines are running through Chicago and the suburbs, but Archer Avenue seems to be one of those lines because, oh gosh, fully 10% of the paranormal activity in the Chicago suburbs takes place on Archer Avenue.
Really?
Oh gosh, yes. You've got Resurrection Mary. You've got
Resurrection Mary is the archetypal, perhaps even quintessential, hitchhiking female ghost. The story is that sometime in the 1920s or 1930s, a young woman, no more than 25, was either killed in a terrible automobile accident or was the victim of a hit and run while she was walking home from a dance club. Now, hundreds of young men have reported picking up a beautiful young woman who gives them directions to Resurrection Cemetery, somewhere along Archer Road, about 30 miles outside of Chicago. By the time they get there, she's disappeared. I wonder why she does that. She could visit me. I'm a good host. I have cookies.
The ghostly monks of St. James the Sag is on Archer Avenue. There's spook lights on Archer Avenue. The Maple Lake spook lights are there. The Bachelor's Grove Cemetery isn't terribly far away from Archer Avenue. So yeah, Archer Avenue has got tons of stuff. And and Archer Avenue is kind of a long stretch of road, so you've got plenty of places for things to happen. And it's adjacent to a lot of places too, like the Grimes sister body dump site. The ballroom that burned down a few years ago, the ballroom where Resurrection Mary started dancing at.
Okay.
That's on Archer Avenue. So yeah, that's the whole Resurrection Mary story is centered on Archer Avenue because that's where you've got Resurrection Cemetery too. And yeah, so and I was always told that could very well be a ley line because there's so much activity along that road.
Well, I was going to say that it really is common in the U.S. If you think of the southwestern United States, right? I've been to Sedona a couple of times. My mom used to live down in Phoenix, and I mean that's supposed to be like 15 different vortexes where ley lines cross through that area. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's whether you consider it to be a new age thing or something else, it still is. It's common in the U.S. We just don't sound as stuffy when we talk about
it. Yeah, you don't sound as stuffy.
I don't have a pipe and a jacket on. Well, the ley lines in Arizona.
All right, JJ, you said you had limited time. I want to make sure that the time that you have, we are exploiting you as much as possible.
Maybe
in a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah, I'm rapidly running out of steam.
I can see you.
And it's not y'all. I really would love to be around for as long as possible, but this week is the ultimate nightmare week for me in terms of work. So, yeah.
Well, we will bid you adieu. And
now, if we want to do another roll, I could hang around.
You can get through a roll.
More, yeah, I can do one more topic.
Let's do a roll. Sylvia, have I ever sent you the rundown list?
Yeah.
You
sent this to me last time.
Okay.
That was when there was over 1,000 paranormal topics.
Right. There were nearly as many as there are now.
There's a lot more.
It's kind of come to dominate parts of my life because I'll be walking through the world or I'll encounter something on TV and I'll say, ooh. Rundown.
You know what? I'm the same way. I'm the same way because that's with me and true crime stories that have resulted in hauntings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Shameless self-promotion. The most recent book of mine that just came out is the second book in the series called Grave Deeds and Dead Plots.
Uh-huh.
And that's true crime stories that have resulted in hauntings. And man, I find one and I just tuck it away for later. Yeah,
well,
I will for at least 5 books, probably 6 by now.
I will support your shameless self-promotion.
Cool.
Listen, there are a lot of authors who will put books together, and I've bought many of these books. Not all authors are really, really good writers. in terms of being able to make the story pleasant, to make it flow, to use words that make you sit back and think, never thought about it like that way before. Sylvia can do that like a champ.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I've read a lot, so I believe that my word at least means a little bit. Okay, back to the rundown list. Where'd you go? There you are. Okay. Let's see. Hitting F9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just going to read them out. Ability, intuition. Project MK Ultra. Judas Priest Trial concerning backward masking. The Michael teachings, which I have defined as channeled New Age spiritual teachings. Synchronicity, pending for the future, and bloops, or individually bloop, the bloop.
I've heard of MK Ultra, and I'm not exactly sure what it entails. I know it's a government thing.
I know that it has to do with efforts to keep UFO activity secret.
Vic Hermanson, the paranormal generalist of the Paranormal Rundown, whose knowledge base is broad but rather shallow, at least in some areas, was wrong about the fundamental facts concerning MK Ultra. MK Ultra was a program developed by the CIA starting in 1953 and continuing through the mid-1960s. Its purpose was to determine how deeply the human mind could be controlled. After the Korean War, many American prisoners of war returned to the United States changed in fundamental and frightening ways. Their personalities had been altered, and they had often embraced communist ideas and propaganda. The director of the CIA, Alan Dulles, along with many academicians, fostered a series of often deeply unethical experiments involving prostitution, sexual coercion, violence, psychological threats, as well as LSD and other drugs to determine how malleable the human mind was. It turns out it's pretty seriously malleable. The program only came to an end when modern ethical rules concerning human experimentation came into play. Then, like the brave souls they were, the CIA destroyed most of the records of the program. Hey, Vic Hermanson, this would make a pretty darn good trailer Trash Terrors episode. Perhaps you should get off your lazy keister.
And to set up disinformation plans and for a whole set of documents that came out. But I'm not sensing that this is a list that anybody has anything that they feel strongly about. So
I'm not at all.
I'm gonna.
Synchronicity is fun.
Is that something you want to talk about, or
not particularly? I just
okay. Well, let me roll again. Let me roll again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Poltergeist. What exactly will the mark of the beast be, assuming there ever is such a thing? Unusual religions, the Prince Philip movement. Let's play the alternative history game. And flying rods and Padre Pio.
Wow. That's some good stuff.
Yeah, those are better ones.
Yeah.
I like the flying rods stuff. And do you guys remember that?
I've heard of them. Isn't that a type of, well, obviously it's a type of UFO.
Well, it's in that it's flying, yeah.
And unidentified.
And then, I'm sorry, but I hit the button so I can't remember them all, but I have another topic up here.
Poltergeist. You said poltergeist, I heard you.
Poltergeist. Does that set off a string within you? Does that make you want to talk about poltergeist?
Sure, yeah, we can talk about poltergeist.
Let's talk about poltergeists.
All right. I mean, they're not my favorite ghosts, but they are kind of intriguing.
Okay. Well, I can cheat. What is your favorite ghost?
Anything that calls back to history. That's my thing, is the history part of the whole ghost thing. But yeah, poltergeists are fun. There's some poltergeist stories that are just kind of boring. They're just throwing things and making noise, and that's about it. But the poltergeist thing, the stories that I find fascinating are the ones where they switch it up, where they do things that are unusual, that aren't the run-of-the-mill poltergeist throwing lamps across the room thing, like the Black Monk of Pontefract. That's always been one of my favorites.
Which is a topic, but I guess I never thought of him as a poltergeist.
Yeah. There was poltergeist activity on 30 East, in the house at 30 East Drive, and it was connected to a ghost called the Black Monk of Pontefract. Pontefract is a town in England, and 30 East Drive was the house in which all this activity centered around. And I'm explaining it for your listeners because I'm sure you guys have all heard of 30 East Drive.
Not so much.
Okay.
Yeah, remember, I'm a generalist, so my knowledge is broad.
That's true. Yeah, Dave is going to be all about this.
Yes, my knowledge is broad and shallow. So.
Okay. So 30 East Drive was the scene of poltergeist activity that started, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, David, but it started in the 50s or 60s. And the first thing that happened was that there was a family living there, and everyone had gone on vacation except for the teenage boy and the grandmother. And the grandmother was in the parlor having tea. And the teenage boy walked into the parlor and realized that at about 5 foot above the floor, there was like talcum powder sifting down from that level onto everything in the room.
That would get your attention.
Yeah.
Especially if you had a peanut butter sandwich.
Hang on. Yeah. And yeah, the poltergeist at 30 East Drive did the weirdest things. Like there was a puzzle piece that was found outside the still sealed puzzle box. The cardboard box that the puzzle came in, there was a puzzle piece outside the box and it was still sealed in the cellophane. It would break eggs in the carton. The mother of the family would take the eggs out of the refrigerator, and the eggs would break as she was watching them. Very Ghostbusteries. The teenage
very much so.
The teenage girl got dragged up the steps by her hair once, and that was kind of unsettling.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I got to be there. I got to visit 30 East Drive. When I went to England last year, that was on my bucket list. I said, I want to see the cage and I want to see 30 East Drive. And I had this whole list of things that we wanted to see. And as we were driving back from Scotland and Loch Ness, we happened to pass, we on purpose went to Pontefract and stood at 30 East Drive, looking at it, being creepers. And as we were standing there looking at it from the outside, we noticed that there were a couple of cars in the driveway. And I said to the guys that were with me, it was my friend Dale and our host, Paul, and he was our native guide. And I said to the guys, I was like, nobody lives there right now. It's just somebody owns it, but it's just reserved for paranormal investigation. So I don't understand what these cars are doing here. And a couple came out of the house, got into one of the cars, and drove away. Gave us kind of an odd look because we were standing on the sidewalk just looking at the place. So we hung around being creepers for a little bit longer. And as we were walking to the car to drive back to headquarters, the couple came back and parked and got out of the car. And we were on our way to the car. And I said to myself, shy babies don't get any sweeties. So I turned right around and walked up to this couple and I said, hello, we're a couple of investigators from America. And we're here visiting England for 3 weeks. And we've come all this way just to see 30 East Drive, and we've heard so much about it, and we just wanted to see the place. And they said, "Oh, well, we've got the place all night." And then she said,
"Why don't you join us?
Would you like to come in?" And so
That's cool.
To investigate 30 East Drive for like 45 minutes or an hour or something, and it was brilliant. It was so cool. And we got to see the stairs that this girl got dragged up by her hair, and we got to see the parlor. And it's kind of like an anti-TARDIS. It's much smaller on the inside than it looks like.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very small on the inside. And yeah, we got to see that. We got to sit in the parlor and see the glass window door where someone saw a shadow figure passing through the window in the door. And we got to see the kitchen where all the eggs were breaking. And it was just really, really fantastic. And the most special part of the evening for me came at the very end. Dale was talking with some of the other folks in the kitchen, and I decided to hang out with the folks who were sitting in the parlor. And they had a Boo Bear going, a spirit box going. And I was recording, of course. And there were, I don't know, 8 people or so sitting in this small parlor, just sitting around. And I was standing in the doorway, and everyone, they were so gracious. There were 3 teams there, and everyone was just so sweet and so welcoming. And they went around and introduced themselves, because I said I'm recording for my podcast. And everyone went around the room and introduced themselves. And I said, "My name's Sylvia." And one of the women at the very end of the row just jumped. And everyone was like, What? And she said, "I was wondering why the Boo Bear said Sylvia 15 minutes."
Vic would have shot it at that point.
No.
Okay, this is awesome. So we stood there talking for a little while longer, and just swapping war stories and everything. And everyone was just so great and so welcoming. And it was just a really amazing experience to be able to be there on an investigation in 30 East Drive.
That's so cool.
I still get shivers thinking about how this is part of my life. I got to do this. This is so great. So like a dummy, I turned my recorder off, and then we said our goodbyes, and we shook hands all around. And I shook hands with Ian, who was the lead investigator for one of the groups and the host of the whole thing. And I said, "Ian, thank you so much to you and all your groups for being so welcoming to us." And he said, "It was my pleasure." And we're standing in the kitchen. The parlor is right there. So he shook my hand. He said, "It was my pleasure." And from the parlor, we heard the ghost box say, "Pleasure."
Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Did you hear anything else from the ghost box while you were there?
Nothing that was as pertinent as that. Those are the 2 things that just really rocked my world.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all that they were gracious and welcoming, because that's kind of how these people are.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, another person who's interested in this weird stuff is here. Oh, cool. Come join us.
Yeah, most paranormal teams are definitely like that.
Oh, yeah. That's been my experience, too.
Right.
Yeah. It was just really cool.
But that is kind of synchronicity. I mean, the fact that you showed up right there at that time, and the fact that they went out to get some jujubes or something.
Right. Jammy Dodgers or Jelly Babies. I don't know.
Right. They went to get something, and then they came back, and you were able to hop in there and say, "Hey, can we come and see what you're doing?" That's awesome.
Yeah. And the fact that we were driving back from the north on a day that an investigation was going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that the
cool.
Boo Bear, I'm assuming a Boo Bear is a bear, a teddy bear.
That's the one we talked about, Vic, that you wanted to shoot holes in. that
Yeah.
says stuff.
Right.
It's got a ghost box in it, and it's used quite a lot on investigations where you're liable to encounter child spirits because children like to interact with the toy, and it will say things like in a child's voice, and it will say things like, "Oh, it's getting warm in here. Can you make it colder?"
The bear is saying this as part of the investigation. This is something programmed into the bear.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
And it will say things that are pertinent to what's going on. And at least that's the theory of a really good $150 Boo Bear. Those will say things that will move the investigation along. So
it's slightly off topic, but haven't there been stories in the news recently, or the last 5 years, we'll say, maybe 10, of little talking dolls that start saying very inappropriate things? And
yeah.
Where did that come from?
That probably started with Teddy Ruxpin.
No. There was a voice a moment ago that wasn't you. It was a female voice. I heard it strongly in my right ear, and it was a mature female voice. I'm hoping it shows up on Zoom.
I thought I heard something, but there was a lot going on. So we'll definitely, when I review it, we'll try to pull it out.
Yeah, I was muted.
What did she say?
I couldn't tell the words, but it was the kind of tone of voice where, okay, you're in a room talking about something, and there's a grandmother who's kind of sitting in the chair. You think she's not really participating, but she's listening. And you'll say something that she knows about, and she'll say, well, yeah, that happened in 1852. Like, you big dummy. Doesn't everyone know that happened in 1852? It was that tone.
Fun. Wow.
We had EVPs.
It's been a bit since we've had a good EVP.
We haven't had a good EVP in a long time.
Yeah.
But I think there's too much holy water and stuff around. But
yeah, true.
No, but anyway, I know there have been some of these toys that would start saying things like, well, I'm not sure this was said, but it was along these lines, like, you know, the knives are in the kitchen and your mother's asleep.
I've heard of that.
You know, things like that. And apparently
usually the batteries are out of it when it says that.
Oh, yeah. But, well, so
JJ, do they have the same focus on haunted dolls in Japan as we do here?
Oh, dear Lord, yes. There are entire jinjas, shrines dedicated to purging cursed objects. And dolls have always been one of the central focal points when it comes to paranormal activity. And that's because of the fact that ningen or dolls, they have a human shape, and so they attract spirits into them. At least that's the Japanese way of thinking about it through Shintoism.
And there was one doll in Japan. I don't remember the name of the shrine, but the little girl's older brother bought it for her, and this is in the 1920s, and then she died of the flu, and her parents donated the doll to the shrine in her memory, and the doll's hair grows, and the monks cut it every.
I've heard that story.
Yeah, I wrote about it in Days of the Dead.
The monk's hair grow. I mean, sorry, the doll's
hair grows,
mm-hmm.
and the doll is possessed by it's a vessel for the spirit of this young girl who died.
That's creepy.
What do they do with the hair?
What do they do with the hair?
Sell it for $19.99. You can get a little packet.
Look, I'm thinking if they're not doing that, once again, bad business decision.
You can probably find it on eBay for $1,500 a pack. But
well, eBay has a huge section where you can go buy haunted dolls.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if it was human hair it was made of.
It'd be certainly seems like that could be
I think
figured out.
so.
I mean, this is old enough that you said 1920s, right?
1920s, yeah.
It could have been real human hair.
Oh, I expect it was, yeah. I don't remember what date it's on, or I'd go and look it up real quick in Days of the Dead, but I don't want to take the time to do that. But yeah, it's in there.
JJ, did you ever encounter any of these dolls when you were in Japan?
No, I did not. Thank the dear goodness gracious, I have not.
But next time you go, you're gonna search one out for us, right? Take a selfie.
I will be in Japan
At some undesignated and highly secret time in the future.
Excellent.
so
Lovely.
I will be going to and taking videos of like Sunshine 360 and Ikebukuro and a couple of other power spots, as they're called, psychic spots,
Power
spots. Yeah,
Okay.
they call it power spots, but yeah, that's meant to be spiritually active locations.
If I send you a recorder and maybe a Ovilus or something, will you go back to Aokigahara,
No,
hang out for a little bit, record the vibrations?
I will never go back there again.
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, he's always made it very clear.
I'm very disappointed, JJ.
I've been there, and I will never go back. I have never
What's it
been
like?
to
Is
a
it
place.
creepy?
Yeah, I have never been so scared in my entire life. Because from the moment I'll quickly brush through this, but from the moment I walked into those woods, it's a natural sound barrier, so there's no external sound, even though you're right next to a major highway.
Oh, dang.
And from the moment we walked in past those trees, I started hearing this low grade, and it never stopped. No one else heard this except for me. And I kept saying, what the heck is this? Mind you, I'm the one who wanted to go to this place. And I had a group of 5 other colleagues with me from work. We walked to maybe like 100 yards in, took a few photos, and then I said, guys, we got to get the hell out of here. I can't do this. And of course, that night we stay at the creepiest ryokan or onsen inn that you have ever seen in your entire life. Yeah, it was an interesting trip.
Dude.
I just want to capture that sound. That's all. Just 5 minutes, JJ. Just 5 minutes.
Joey, tell the folks listening at home what a hogi. I'm going to mess that up.
Aokigahara. It is the forest at the base of Mount Fuji, and it's about 32 kilometers in width in total area. But it is the place which the ground is volcanic. So people say that you lose cell phone signals, compasses don't work, but it is the second most popular suicide spot in the world after the Golden Gate Bridge. And people have rumored for a very long time that back in when Japan was still in its rural phase, that when villages would go hungry, then they would cart off their elderly and their infirm into the forest to die.
Yeah, so even though it may be the second most popular spot for suicide, it has a much longer history.
Yes.
So in terms of overall suicides there, I'm sure much more massive.
Would not doubt that whatsoever.
Yeah, we've talked about it a handful of times at least.
Yep.
It's on my bucket list. When we were over there, we didn't have time to get to it. I was telling my wife, I'm like, but we're here. We're not that far away. I mean, how can you not go?
It's a day trip to get out there and back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we couldn't make the timing work. But next time we go, we will be going.
JJ, are you going to see any of the self-mummified monks?
No, and
that is a topic you should put on your list, Victor.
We've talked about it.
Yeah,
I saw one in Thailand.
Oh,
and I didn't know it. Well, I actually have a picture of it. He's got sunglasses on. He's sitting there in the praying position, and we went to that It was so cool. And it wasn't until we did that on an episode that I made the connection. I found it. I was like, oh, I saw him.
All right, I'm going to tell you the problem I have with that. And it's a human problem. It's not a
Okay.
spiritual problem. It's a human problem. JJ, you're given some ridiculous assignment at work. You're supposed to, create the psychic link between software that was written in 1961 and now, and you have a week to do it. And so, of course, what does JJ do? He just dives right in, starts writing, finds things that work, throws things away that don't. And 7 minutes before it's due, it's done. That pretty accurate?
Yes.
That's pretty accurate.
That's happened more than a few times, actually.
And when that happens, you can stand back, you can look at the code, you can say, "Ooh, I did a good job with that." There's a feeling of accomplishment. There's a feeling of you did something worth doing. Same in architecture. I worked my keister off. I've finished this design, look back, good stuff. The monk never gets to look back and see his handiwork. See what a good job he did. At least we don't know for certain that he gets to look back and see what he did. He's doing this without any ability to realize the greatness of his work.
He'll never see the finished product.
Never sees we have no proof.
Maybe not the finished product, but there would be 3 to 5 years during the self-mummification process in which he would have a front row seat to all of the changes that were occurring.
That's true. I'm sure your skin would have some changes going on with that.
Hasn't he been eating
diet at first, and then the lacquer drinking?
Ugh.
So gross.
Not sure.
And if it didn't work, you just became anathema. You were just like disposed of and swept under the rug, and nobody mentioned your name anymore. Ugh.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if
it didn't work very often.
If you failed, for the most part, something, let's say an 85% chance, of all you're going to be is forgotten.
Right. That's probably a pretty good estimate of the percentage. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some dedication right there.
Yeah. And if they the monk would sit in his little cell and ring a bell, and when the bell stopped, they knew he had died, and they would leave him for a year and a day, maybe a year. And if they opened up the cell and the monk was not mummified, they would, I don't know if they'd bury him or cremate him or something, but yeah, he was like never spoken of again, and the experiment was considered to have failed, and he did not attain enlightenment, and he was just became a non-person after that, a non-entity, and that's kind of horrible.
Doesn't it seem like Franz Kafka should have written a story about this? I mean, that's right up his alley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I could go down that path. I don't think I could handle the diet.
No. I gotta have my carbs.
I like my ice cream too much. I don't think that was on the list, right?
No, it was definitely not on the list.
So Sylvia, you had mentioned something early on. I was talking about wanting those feelings that I got from watching that first monster movie again.
Yeah.
And you said that's why you do paranormal investigation. And so the question I have is, and you may have answered it with your England trip, but when was either the last time you felt that in a really good way, or the best time in feeling that?
One of the best times. Oh, there are several best times. We talked about candy and ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
There was I make it a practice when I visit graves of children, especially, to bring candy with me and put it on the grave. I gave candy to the the children who were killed in the Villisca axe murder. There is a small child ghost in a cemetery right outside Pekin where I live, where I always leave her candy when I visit her. And I've visited a cemetery in Kentucky, called Casey Cemetery, that has quite a lot of children's graves in it. And it's quiet and solemn, not terribly frightening. The human monsters we encountered there were much more frightening than the ghosts that we encountered. But I brought some Swedish fish and distributed them among several graves. And I spoke with a psychic medium friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, that was doing a spirit box session of the week after I visited Casey Cemetery. And someone asked, was it you who put the candy down? And Liz said, no, that wasn't me. That was my friend Sylvia. And so I guess I'm getting a reputation on the other side as the candy lady. So, but one of the coolest things one of the coolest times that I had that feeling of, wow, this is really neat. I was in Gettysburg, and I was at the orphanage next to the Jenny Wade house, or very, very close to the Jenny Wade house. And the orphanage is a place there where the second headmistress of the orphanage was an absolutely horrible woman who abused the children quite badly. And she would lock some of the children in basically a pit in the basement, which still exists, and you can go and sit in it. And it's a dirt floor, and it's damp brick walls of this awful, awful place where she would leave the children down there for days at a time. And I sat there. If there's somebody with me, I'm fearless. I would have done this on my own, but if there's somebody just in the general area, I have no problem doing this. And I went in there and I sat there, and I put a piece of candy down for whatever little child ghost was in there, and I just sat there and I talked to them, and I said, I'm sorry you had to go through this, and I'm here with you now, and I hope that having someone here with you makes you feel a little better. And it just gave me a really good feeling to sit there and talk with a spirit just as I would with a living person, because they were once living people. And I don't see any reason why I shouldn't talk to them as though I were talking to a living person.
Neither do I.
Yeah. So I lost the thread of what I was trying to say.
Well, we were talking about when was the last time you had this feeling, whatever the feeling is, and I think that's a very good answer.
Yeah, yeah. And I really enjoy talking with them, just like I would have a conversation with anyone else.
Well, if it felt that natural, this is my view. If you're doing something that has no purpose at all, it will not end up feeling natural. But I believe we're set up like that. So if it felt natural to you, if it felt like just the standard conversation you would have with a child, I think you were probably talking to them.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, once again, no proof of that, but I think we're pretty good at sensing when something is either wrong or useless. And obviously you weren't sensing either of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds to me you're a lot like my wife, Sylvia.
Yeah.
Laura is a magnet for children when we investigate. If there are children there, she's going to play with them. And there will be a period of time in the investigation where it's extremely playful.
Mhm.
And, you know, it has no negative feeling to it. It has no, and it is a playful feeling. You know, it is, we were at the Poe Museum in Richmond, and I've talked about this a couple times, I think, where they, out in the courtyard, we had them running back and forth and jumping over a K2. And every time they would, it would light up.
Oh,
And they're going
nice.
from side like a little relay race, you know. And she always comes up with neat stuff for kids.
That is
And
super fun.
it is. It's, you know, it's, I mean, you would think it would be sad. I know anytime Vic has talked about EVPs from kids, it seems sad, but you know, there are parts of investigating that can be joyful and you can enjoy.
Absolutely. What was the name of this museum?
Oh, it's the Poe Museum in Richmond, Virginia. It's got a whole bunch of history for Poe there. And it's got, like, they removed the steps from his childhood home, and the whole set of stairs is in there. A whole bunch of his things are there. It's a couple different buildings. They have a courtyard in the middle. We've investigated it. I know our group, I'm sure they did it more than just the times that we did, but I think we were there like 4 or 5 times.
Cool.
And there's a whole bunch of different stuff there.
Neat.
There was someone that pretended to be a child that groped my wife. That was not a child.
Oh my.
That was not as playful, but
Ooh,
but yeah,
now the
yeah,
question
neat
is,
place.
do I write about the Poe Museum for my museum book or for my author book?
Why not both?
There you go. Sure. Double
Why
dip.
not?
Why not?
You can slightly change the approach.
Yeah.
To either one. I mean, look, there must be lots and lots and lots of stories about Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Now, I don't think that anybody there on the investigations has run into Poe, or anything that pretended to be Poe or anything like that. It's just a very, very active place that's got a tie to him,
Okay.
and it's neat. I've had one of the best flashlight sessions I ever had there.
Neat.
We had Mary Ellen Guiley was with us.
Oh
And,
wow.
Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and she was curious about the flashlight thing, and so I was explaining to her how it worked, and we did this, like, I've got it on video, like 5 or 6 minute long flashlight session where it's given answers, and then I ignore it and it stops, and I'm like, "You still there?" And it pops right back up, and all the stuff you want out of a flashlight session. It was really neat.
Oh, fantastic.
But yeah, it's a cool place.
So you got to go investigating with Rosemary Ellen Guiley.
Once, yeah, it was really, really cool. She was super nice, super sweet.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard about her.
well, who has any finishing out thoughts?
JJ, you're still with us. What a trooper.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I've been yawning. It's not because y'all are boring. I promise. I worked all weekend. I got my wife on a plane to Tokyo at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and then I worked for 16 hours yesterday and had a very stressful demo today. So I'm just wiped.
I'm
I
surprised.
figured out the
vertical.
solution to this problem, JJ.
What?
You just need to quit your job.
If I could and still afford to pay for everything, I'd be more than happy to.
Well, if it's any consolation, I didn't even notice you yawning. So,
All right, good. That makes me feel better because last thing I ever want to be is rude, especially to a guest. So,
Oh, believe me, you've not been anywhere near there.
oh, no.
Listen, you're the first repeat guest we've had on the Paranormal Rundown.
Hey.
You are?
Oh,
Yes, you are the
Thank
first
you.
repeat
Hey, look,
guest.
you have made your mark on this show. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Paranormal Dork Talk really, really, you know, that just hit the bell, hit the nail on the head. The point, Father Mike and he had connectivity problems, so he had to drop off. But he loves calling us the Paranormal Dork Crew. I mean, it's just really made its mark here. So, and we talk about your episode from last time all the time. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
We really enjoyed it.
Oh,
Sylvia,
I'm just having a blast with this.
Sylvia, you're welcome to be here anytime you wish. I recently, if you don't mind, Dave and JJ, I recently saw a full body walk into a wall, disappear kind of ghost.
What? Really?
Yeah, I was going to tell you. You had
us.
to tell her this story tonight.
Yeah. Well, see,
Tell her.
we're working great minds and all that.
Yes.
Well, if I had a lot of money, I would send you a plane ticket and I would ask you to meet me in at the Baldwin Book Barn here in Pennsylvania.
I would show up.
we would have to send in a rescue team. Okay. I mean, it's this old Quaker barn with like 2-foot thick limestone walls.
Mm-hmm.
And they have just filled this place up, every possible inch of it with books. At one time, it had 400,000 books. Now it's down to about 300,000 books.
Oh.
I don't think it just a pittance, but look, any kind of book you want, it's in there somewhere. They're very, very minimal organization. So up on the 4th floor is the paranormal and unusual kind of section. And so, of course, I worked my way up there and was, walking around, and I was sitting down looking for a particular book, and now I can't remember which exact book I was looking for, but I wasn't finding it. And so I sit down on one of the benches they have there. And the way this thing is built, nobody gets anywhere without you knowing they are there, because it's old and wooden and it creaks, and every footstep is a plonk, clonk, plonk, clonk. And then I became aware of somebody over to my right. And the first thought in my mind is, how did they get up here without me knowing that they're here? And then I thought, man, I don't think I was that engrossed in the titles of the books. So I look over, and there is what at first I was thinking of as Amish, but other people I've talked to have told me they think he's probably Quaker. But I mean, it just central casting Quaker dude with a straw hat, canvas pants, big clodhopper boots, blue shirt, beard, the whole bit. Clear that he didn't have any concern about me at all. Whatever world he was in, whatever he was doing, I didn't matter one bit. and he stands there for a minute. And it wasn't like, I'd love to be able to say that he turned to me and, there was a recognition, but no, I didn't exist in his world. And then he just sort of walks into the wall, disappears.
Wow.
And
do you know how many investigators would kill to have that experience?
Just thinking to myself, I would love to see that.
Well, and I didn't have any way of recording that. If I had had a camera, would I have seen anything? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. And so then I've, worked my way down, find my brother, work my way down, and ask the lady who's there, who I believe is Mrs. Baldwin. And this is in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And it's right there by the college. And actually they had a deal for a long time for the college to buy that land and that building and turn it into something for the college. But I think that's fallen through. But I said, Can I ask you a question about the fourth floor? Yeah, you saw him.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, you saw him. I mean, it wasn't even I didn't have to ask the question. It was just so apparently so many people have seen.
Like, oh yeah, you just saw Jim on the fourth floor. It's fine.
Right. You just saw Jim on the fourth floor. You saw him. So nothing at all frightening or off-putting or stress-inducing. It was just a guy going about something that I wasn't a part of.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's nothing more I can tell you about that. The experience was over, and that was it.
Marvelous. What a wonderful thing to have experienced.
Well, I think hundreds of people must have seen this kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
and Dave and I have talked about it a lot. I mean, the part that was it's finally just become very clear to me is I didn't matter, at all.
So did you get the sense that this was a residual thing, or he was just ignoring you?
Well, I mean, look, the first awareness was just there's a guy over there.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, there's a man over there. And then once I realized that wasn't what I was seeing, it was there's a point of confusion where you're trying to Dave's nodding his head
No, it's just my neck.
Your neck. No, there's a point of confusion where you're trying to place this in your bank of experiences. Everything you run into, you've got to compare it to something else. Oh, this is like that time. I don't have anything like that. I didn't have anything to compare it to. So I don't think he was residual. I think he was something that had a purpose. I don't know what that purpose is, but I wasn't part of the purpose.
Okay. Yeah, from what you're saying, it doesn't sound residual.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
And I would love to be able to say that, he was like perfect, kind of transparent or translucent or had some kind of glow or, any of the cliche things, but he just looked like a man until he started to fade away and walk into the limestone wall.
That's a question we didn't really talk about. Other people have seen him, but what have other people seen him do?
Don't know. I can't find anything. No one's written anything about it. I can't find anything about it. I can't find anything about it. And the people at the store, they deal with it just as if they would deal with, where are the books on blenders?
Well, that building, it says it was built in 1822.
Uh-huh.
So, you definitely wonder if there is someone in that history that would be tied to it.
I don't think he would be the person that I saw, and I'll refer to it as a person, okay? Because what it seemed like reasonable to me, I don't think he was ever part of the let's bring a lot of books in here. He would have been part of the let's work this as a farm. Let's work this as a barn.
Right, whatever it was when it was first built.
Whatever it was when he was there. Because he just had the look of a man who was ready to do his job. I mean, I come out of this with the awareness that, okay, this sort of thing is possible. There are people who see things. I've seen things now. But I don't really have any more knowledge than I did before. Other than, this is possible. And then, of course, there's always that skeptic part of my mind that's saying, maybe just for that 3 minutes, the hallucination gene kicked in.
Right. Your body just produced a little bit of DMT. Uh-huh. I mean, look, that's some people's theory, right? That some people, their theory is that your brain is, you're producing a little DMT, you're having a little hallucination, and I don't buy it, but
I don't buy it either, because I'd be having hallucinations. If your brain were going to do that, you'd be having hallucinations all the time.
That's what it seems like.
Right.
Well,
And
maybe.
What doesn't make sense about that is that it has to do with the history of the place that you're in. I mean, why would you, if your brain is just randomly producing hallucinations, why not go to Gettysburg and see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man instead of hearing cannon fire?
Well, and that's what Dave is talking about. I mean, if he's saying if tulpas were common, we'd be having what do you say, purple narwhals?
Yeah. We had a conversation about narwhals. It's like you'd have all kinds of purple narwhals hopping down the street. If you could make tulpas that easy,
yeah,
right, then you'd have
it takes a lot of effort
all the
to
time.
make a tulpa.
Right. Tulpas, to me, that's somebody that's sat, in a cave and meditated for 10 years. Bam. They figured out how to make a tulpa. Okay. But that just isn't something that happens all of a sudden.
Takes some commitment.
As someone. Yeah, exactly.
Well, plus, I mean, I had no real idea other than just Pennsylvania about the history of that place. So when you see someone dressed like that in Pennsylvania, you immediately think Amish.
Sure.
You could. So from a hallucination standpoint, you could easily have a hallucination that's within the context that you're in.
Sure.
So you're in a place that has history, that is in Amish country. Now, I would be curious why they think it's Quaker, not Amish.
Just because that was a Quaker area.
Okay. So, it would be interesting if there would be anything about the physical appearance that you could distinguish between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's say that it's just not that I don't think it's hallucination, but let's just say that it was. If you thought Amish and Amish didn't wear canvas pants, they wore corduroys.
Mm-hmm.
Making it up, right? And so you hallucinated canvas, and that's Amish, and Quaker was that area, and they would have been corduroy. Then that would be more for the hallucination side of things.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You hallucinated what you would have seen in that environment versus what would have actually been in that environment. So maybe the hat would be a tip-off. Maybe the style of hat would be slightly different for Quaker versus Amish.
The buttons or the boots or something.
Right. So if you could distinguish a difference there and what you saw truly was Amish versus Quaker, then you could maybe make a case for the hallucination side of things.
Because your brain wouldn't know the difference.
Wouldn't know the difference, and you hallucinated what your brain thought you would see in there.
Right.
The flip side of that is if that was the case, maybe there's some piece of furniture or some piece of, candlestick or whatever that came from an Amish farm that has an attachment to it, and you're seeing somebody who is Amish there because they're there. It could be related to something that's in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be Quaker. So I don't know, but I have heard that theory that whether it's UFOs or cryptids, ghosts, whatever, that your body is based on a situation producing a little bit of the DMT, and bam, you're having a little trip.
Well, I mean, I can't tell you that's not possible.
I don't think it's likely. It's possible.
I don't think it is, and that takes all the romance out of it.
Oh, I'm definitely with you there. That's no fun. No fun there. So I give it a thumbs down.
Agreed.
Sylvia, being an architect and looking at the details of your door and the railings and all that house must be from early 20th century that you're living
1914.
in? 1914. Not bad, huh?
Well done, you.
So 110 years old. Does that house have any haunting activity?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I have been told that a previous owner is here because we were driving back from Gettysburg, and a friend of mine is a different psychic medium friend of mine said that she was going to give me a reading, so she just kind of did it in the car driving back from Gettysburg one year.
Right.
And she was telling me, she's never been to my house. And she was telling me physical things about my house that are absolutely true. I mean, she's describing my house. And the reason she was able to do that was because she was communicating with the spirit of an elderly lady who used to live here. And she was like, yeah, she really likes the fact that you have a garden, which I have never told Dana. And she really likes the fact that you keep your canning jars in the attic and do canning. And another thing that I never told Dana.
Right.
Yeah, so she's still here. I am not aware of her. I'm perfectly happy to know that she's here and watching over me and enjoying what I'm doing with my garden and everything. She's welcome to be here. I'm just not aware of her.
A quiet ghost is a happy ghost.
She's been a very
exactly yes. I have no desire to have a poltergeist in my house, even though it usually looks like a poltergeist. It usually looks like the third day of an exorcism. Yeah. But anyway, I'm a very indifferent housekeeper. Maybe she was the one who piped in to your ear the other, half an hour ago or whenever it was.
I'm hoping that that's in there because I really did hear it pretty strongly.
Cool.
And that's the first time I've ever really heard something.
Nice.
That when we've been talking. We normally find them afterward.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And some of them have been extremely clear.
Yeah, didn't you send me one?
I sent you one that was very clear. And I mean, it was really focused on me for a while. And I would say something and then I'd hear a with
awesome.
with a little bit of a sarcastic tinge to it.
No doy.
Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth-Smythe. There was indeed a quite audible EVP on Sylvia's channel. It was not present on any other channel, and it's definitely a human voice, with that little EVP tinge of specialness to it. The boys have argued over what it might say, but I have my ideas. So, listen to it a few times and write to Old Uncle Cedric and tell him what you think it says. It sounds like the little old man in the movie Up. Very good character, by the way.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Well. Fun.
So, okay, Sylvia, why don't you tell us about your books, your podcast, your website? Make yourself a little more famous.
Okay, well, I've got lots of books out there, including fun titles like Gone on Vacation, Haunted Zoos, Museums, and Amusement Parks. There is a sequel being planned to that'll come out in, I don't know, a couple of years or so, called Gone on Vacation, Endless Summer. So that's in the works. The most recent book is Grave Deeds and Dead Plots, Volume 2. And that is a collection of true crime stories that have resulted in hauntings. I'm very excited about that because, speaking of podcasts, there is a Grave Deeds and Dead Plots podcast coming out sometime later this month. And it is me basically reading stories from the book.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love the title.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very creative.
My husband is my title guy, so he has come up with all the best titles like 44 Years in Darkness and Gone on Vacation and Fractured Spirits. He came up with that too, and Fractured Souls as well. All the really good titles are the ones that he came up with. So yes, Grave Deeds and Dead Plots 2 is out now, and it's going to be a podcast, which I'm very excited about. And my podcast, Lights Out, is out in the world. And if you go to sylviashults.com, You can find that there, and it's SHULTS. And right now I was in England and Scotland last June, and I'm still going through my files and putting together lights out episodes about my England adventures. So that is still an ongoing thing. So
how often do you publish your podcast?
Oh, whenever I have the time.
Whenever you have the time.
It's not on any sort of schedule known to humankind at all. It's just whenever I have the time and can be arsed to put one together. The one that I just released a few days ago was, it's actually a true crime story that ended up in Grave Deeds and Dead Plots 2 because it was absolutely new to me. And I just learned about it when I was in England. It's the story of Dr. Hawley Harvey Crippen, who murdered his wife in 1910. And we got to see the place where the apartment building where they used to live used to stand. It was destroyed in the Blitz and rebuilt as an apartment building. But we got to visit that, and our host, Paul, told us the story of Dr. Crippen and his wife, Cora, who mysteriously went missing on January 31st, 1910, and was later found, well, parts of her were found in
Parts
the
of her were found.
Yes.
Hawley had taken care of the rest.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a ghost story associated with that too. Dr. Crippen makes his way to where a pond used to be on the property very close to where the apartment building used to stand, and his ghost walks towards the pond holding a wrapped bundle under his arm, which we theorize used to be Cora Crippen's head, and then he later walks back from the pond empty-handed. So we figure that her head is somewhere in the pond, but the pond is long gone now. But
Sylvia, if you're not about to fall over, I got a couple of questions I'd like to ask you, if you're able to, for me to do so.
Absolutely, lay them on me.
First off, I'll say something. Every student should at one point in their life have a teacher like Sylvia. Don't you agree, Dave?
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
I mean, no, Sylvia, you've got that perfect, gentle, educated voice that is just, this lady makes me want to know more.
Oh, that is a very high compliment.
Well, believe me, I mean, Dave's known me long enough. How often do I ever say anything that I don't mean?
Yeah.
No, I never say anything I don't mean. It makes me feel, you remind me of Mrs. Turner, I was at Robinson High School in Tampa, Florida. This was 10th grade, and I'd been put in just a regular English class. And, I didn't really know that there were different kind of classes. And so...
Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I brushed the dog's ear, and I think
Does she need to go tinkle?
No. She's fine. I think she's got a little bit of an infection in one ear, and I brushed that ear too hard.
Oh, okay. But so anyway, we were doing Julius Caesar at the time. And so they'd give us these instructions, and I loved Julius Caesar, and I would go and I would, write these really long essays and, come up with all these different ideas about Shakespeare. And so one day, the teacher that I had calls me up to the front of the room. She says, you really need to be in a different class. I said, and being me, I said, well, what'd I do wrong? And she says, no. We've got a class that's designed for people who think the way you do. Okay.
Excellent.
Show up the next day, go to Mrs. Turner's class. And Mrs. Turner, my gosh, she didn't look like you, but she sounded just like you. and she would be talking. They were doing Silas Marner.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I hadn't read Silas Marner yet, so I had to catch up. But when you listen to Mrs. Turner, there's something inside of you that said, I need to listen to everything she says very carefully.
Aha.
because she's going to explain it to me better than anybody else ever will. You've got that same thing, Sylvia. which look, when I run into stuff like that, I tell people about it because it's a rare thing. Did you ever see the photo that we on this show called Fabio?
I don't think so. Describe it.
Well, let me see if I can find. Dave, have you got a Fabio picture?
Oh, I don't think I kept it. We'll talk about something else while you're drugging it up. You were talking about the Jenny Wade house. You were near that at the orphanage.
Yes.
We love Gettysburg. We used to go to phenomenology up there. Have you ever been to the conference there?
I haven't, but it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, they stopped doing it. I don't think they do it anymore.
Oh, man.
But it was a great conference. It was at the generally I forget the name of the hotel, but big hotel and conference center. And then they would do investigations, like you'd investigate Farnsworth, you'd do the orphanage.
Oh my God, the peanut soup at the Farnsworth Inn. Oh,
I haven't eaten there. But we've investigated there a couple
have
times.
the peanut soup.
We had a baby cry down the hallway while we were investigating there, which was really interesting. But we did just the tour of Jenny Wade. It wasn't an investigation. It was just the normal tour thing of it.
Yeah.
And this woman we were with, I think she was from Fort Mifflin, friend of Laura's, took a picture in that old mirror that they've got up on the second floor.
Yep.
And got an apparition in it.
Nice.
Like you could see the dress that she was wearing and everything. It was really, and I tried to get a copy of that picture and I didn't before we left. But it was super, super cool. It's one of the few things that I've seen, that I knew for certain was a real picture of an apparition.
Oh my.
I try to explain, we talk about it on the show sometimes. Video or photo evidence is really, really rare. You really don't get a lot of it. And so that was a really, really cool one. That was one of those experiences.
Audio evidence is much more prevalent. But
absolutely.
And before I forget, we were talking about Amy Bruni before. She has just released a book called Food to Die For. And it is recipes from haunted places. Nice. And it is fabulous. The photography is phenomenal. And the stories and the recipes are super, super fun. She has Lizzie Borden's meatloaf recipe in the book. Seriously, somebody found a card, a handwritten recipe from Lizzie Borden. I guess they found it at Maplecroft or something, but it was Lizzie Borden's meatloaf recipe, which is what gave her the idea for the book. And one of the things, she had the Donner Party in there, and I'm like, what recipe could she possibly have found for the Donner Party? And it was like some Indian cornbread, like Indian pudding sort of thing. Recipe that they had on the trail. It was a very, very simple recipe that they would have cooked on the trail. It wasn't anything horrible, but yeah, the recipe she did the Farnsworth Inn and a couple of Gettysburg sites, and for Jenny Wade House, of course, she had a bread recipe, and for the Farnsworth Inn, she had the peanut soup recipe. So have you tried it? I haven't tried making it yet, but oh my gosh, I can't wait to make it because the recipe, the peanut soup at the Farnsworth Inn is a thing of beauty.
I'll have to look at it.
She had Farnsworth Inn. I was like, please, please, please be the peanut soup recipe, and it was. So
what is peanut soup? Can you compare it to something else to kind of what it tastes like?
Well, the base of it is chicken broth.
Okay.
So it's like a chicken soup without noodles. It's chickeny tasting underneath, and then it's got that savory peanut flavor to it.
Okay.
It's a smooth soup. It's a cream soup.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds delicious. I've never had it.
There are, and depending upon the recipe, it can be really, really rich.
It is very rich.
So my grandfather, Lee Griffith, was head steward at Hotel Roanoke in Roanoke, Virginia, where we grew up. And he and Chef Brown created their peanut soup recipe that they're famous for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a chicken soup base, and but it's extremely, extremely rich. And
most cream soups are.
Yeah,
but it's peanutty rich. I mean, it is, boy.
Oh, dirty to me, baby.
I get you a copy of the recipe. The Jefferson Hotel in Richmond, Virginia, serves a very similar recipe, but they put dried cherries, the really good cherries in it. And that is fantastic because it cuts through the richness of it.
Oh my!
And gives a little bit of tang. So you should try that.
I will.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So you show me your recipe, I'll show you mine, and
okay,
and we'll see how they compare.
So in the chat part of Zoom, I have placed. Well, first off, I was just being silly and put a picture of me when I was a kid. But that's not the picture.
Where is chat? Is it down in this thing that says more?
Yeah, probably so.
There it is. Ooh.
Yeah, chat. Yeah.
Well, there it is. Okay.
And that's where all of those things, all of those links that Josh has been creating, which we need to get in the show notes. I want to make sure I figure out a way to get those.
Oh,
don't want to lose it.
Warned me that there was a mummy picture. Oh.
Yeah, Josh posted the one from the internet, but the two below that are some of the ones that I took from our trip.
I don't see them.
He's just chilling with the sunglasses on, man.
I know.
Do you consider that a little
That's the one thing I just cannot do is mummies. And the song Sweet Home Alabama. Two things in life I just
well, those are so closely related.
Yeah.
Well, okay, wait. So you've never been to Guanajuato, Mexico?
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
Pass. Nope. No.
So okay, hard pass. Like, well, we've already had one hard pass tonight. No, like JJ's not going back to Aokigahara, and you're not going to Guanajuato. I've been to Guanajuato.
How lovely for you.
Okay. The very last thing posted on this chat list, this is the second picture. And if you could open that up. Don't worry about the first picture. I was a reasonably cute little boy. The second picture is what I'm wanting to show you.
Okay.
That's Fabio.
This is Fabio.
Oh, okay.
He has the long, beautiful hair.
Oh my.
You can click on it and it'll get bigger.
Yeah, let's do.
And click on it and it'll get bigger.
Oh, there we go. It's covered you up, but.
All right, so here's
what is that?
Well, I know that this is not in any way fabricated or fake because I know the people from whom it came.
Uh-huh.
Okay. This is from a very low quality, cheap trail cam that they bought specifically for the purpose of trying to document feral dogs.
Okay.
On their property and there are feral dogs out there that were messing with their livestock, chickens and pigs and things like that. And Pennsylvania has resources to help you protect your livestock from feral dogs. So they needed to, a lot of states do. So they needed to document this.
Sure.
Well, instead of getting feral dogs, they got this. The thing that's covered with straw, which is a feral dog trap,
okay, yeah,
made out of an old veal crate, is 4 feet tall, from the bottom blue line, or somewhere around the bottom blue line, because the bottom of it is buried also in straw. Okay. It's 4 feet tall. So if you plant that out visually with the boxes, this guy is 7'9" tall, or about 7'9" tall.
And he's leaning forward a little bit, so he might actually be 8 feet tall.
He may actually be 8 feet tall.
Yeah, I can see that he's leaning forward a little.
All right. Now, he's huge. He's not only 8 feet tall, or 7'9" tall, he's built like a water tower. And he's got this long, luxurious hair. We believe that he's holding the body of a feral dog, you know, with his left arm and in his left hand, because we think we kind of see legs there. We don't really know.
Okay, yeah, I can see legs.
You know, who knows exactly? But
here's the fascinating thing.
It gets more fascinating?
Well, if you look at the picture, you'll notice that the cage in front of him is very clear in focus.
Yeah.
The tree behind him is also pretty clear in focus.
Yeah.
So he's got to be moving pretty quick.
Yeah, he's moving. Or maybe he's
literally fuzzy.
Yeah, well, maybe he's a Sasquatch ghost. I mean, look, I don't know what this is. Okay, this doesn't. I mean, it looks to me like he's wearing very rudimentary clothes.
That's what it looks like to me too. He's wearing some sort of
he's wearing
like a medieval covering.
Yeah, so it almost seems like you even see plaid on his left upper arm. You know, maybe some kind of vest or something. Look, hard to tell. There's just not enough detail here to tell.
Well, he's definitely got layers. He's definitely got layers on.
Yes, he's got layers of clothing on. Okay, and so it gets pretty cold in Pennsylvania, so you'd expect that he'd have, you know, something. But I'm sure glad I've spent a fair amount of time in the Pennsylvania forests, even at night, and I don't want to run into this guy.
Oh, certainly not.
So since I know you've never seen this picture before, what are your thoughts about that?
Whoa. That, whatever it is an excellent capture.
I didn't capture it.
Well, no, I'm David knows what I mean. Yeah, well, it's definitely, there are some weird things that show up on trail cam stills. And yeah, it definitely looks like something checking out that trap and maybe even leaning down to touch it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's investigating the trap.
I think he's just running
having the
straight
sense not to be having the sense not to be in front of it and, you know, get himself caught in the trap. Not that
I don't think the trap had much of a chance.
Wow, that is really neat. I wish there was. I know it's fuzzy because of the motion and
the fact that it was a lousy camera.
Yeah, they're not really known for a lot of detail, but wow, that's really intriguing.
Well, anyway, cool. I have a theory as to what I think it is.
Tell me.
Well, if you go back, I will send you the article. But if you go back to the 1940s or so, and you start looking at newspapers up in Canada, to them, the newspapers, they would just simply talk about the Sasquatch as being another tribe of people.
Oh, cool.
You know, another Indian tribe that lived up in the mountains. Very large, very primitive, somewhat aggressive people. And they would disappear for periods of time. They thought maybe they went, you know, way up north and they came back. And so you'll find these articles that say things like, the mysterious Sasquatch tribe is returned. And they would talk about there being, these fires up on these huge mountains where nobody could go. And they did not talk about this as being mythical. They didn't talk about this as being cryptic. They were just another group of people. Huge people. I think they've migrated down to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And we don't have very many of them. And they try to stay hidden, and they're very, very good at staying hidden, and they're very, very good at not being noticed. But every once in a while, something gets caught on a trail cam.
Well, see, that's the thing that they say about Nessie, that there's not much of a breeding population in the lake. But, I mean, the wilderness of Pennsylvania and the wilderness in general is a big enough area that there would be the possibility of a breeding population.
Well, I'm pretty sure in Illinois, there are places you can go out and get lost in the woods
for
a long time.
In Southern Illinois?
Yeah, you probably don't even have to drive that far to find a place where you're really isolated.
Yep.
Same thing in Pennsylvania. I mean, you've got some big towns, you got a lot of small towns, but there's just a lot of nothing in between. So the other thing that I find interesting about this picture is it doesn't seem to have any of the hallmarks of what you'd normally see as a fake picture. Just look for fake Bigfoot pictures, and you can find a lot of them. But anyway, I thought you might find this particular photo interesting.
Yeah.
Plus, I thought you might laugh at the name Fabio that we gave.
Yes. It's a good nickname for him.
Good nickname. I don't think this is really your area of concern, but
it's not really. I don't have much to do with cryptids. I find them interesting. I find them a lot more feasible than UFOs. But I mean, I'll take a good cryptid story every once in a while. Sure.
I've got some. I've seen 4 or 5 UFOs.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen UFOs.
Did they look like? I mean, just the lights, or
no. I mean, I can. Well, several were just lights, but But I don't mean. But they weren't just lights. Look, I've seen so many of those that I don't even think about them anymore. Okay. I mean, because I used to spend a lot of time with a telescope outside looking up at the skies. Okay. I didn't have fancy equipment. I had a 10-inch Dobsonian scope that I would manually control. And I was just getting to where I knew where things were in the sky and how to focus on them and how to see them. Well, if you do that very long, you will see things. You will see things. And see, this is one of the things I don't understand. Amateur astronomers don't talk about this very much, because you will see stuff. You'll see stuff that's transiting the moon in a way that nothing that we have could transit the moon. And the moon's easy to see. It's very bright, so you have to really stop the scope down in order to not hurt your eyes. And I mean, it's reflecting 11% of sunlight.
Oh, wow.
So you'll see things transit the moon all the time. But what I was seeing in North Carolina were these monstrous triangles that were incredibly huge, hundreds of yards on a side. And you just see them kind of float across the sky. And what you would see would be the occultation of the stars behind them. So suddenly the star field along that line would stop. You wouldn't see it. But you could make out that shape coming along. So I don't think those are anything amazing. I saw in Kentucky.
No, just big flying triangles up in space.
Sure, amazing. Amazing about that at all.
Sort of, like your average everyday Friday night thing.
I saw in Kentucky, I saw what seemed to be connected lights. And the funny thing about this is we were driving to see my sister, and my wife was in the passenger seat, and my 2 sons were in the back playing one of the games I used to play in the car. I mean, they loved going on trips because they just got to sit there and play these Pokemon games or whatever for a long time. And I stop it, I see it, and I said, I slow the car down and say, "Hey, everybody, wake up. Look, right there. What is that?" "Oh, that's a UFO, Dad." And they immediately went back to playing these games.
Okay, then.
It didn't even interest them. It was just, "Yeah, thanks, Dad. That was a UFO. All right." And immediately went back to playing their games. Now, the one that I saw that really does baffle me, and I wrote this into MUFON, was I was at a baseball game for one of my sons. Actually, I think maybe they were both playing that day. But I found myself in the middle of the field between the baseball fields. And I was looking up. And it was like when I became aware. See, that's the thing. It wasn't like I don't remember getting up from the bleachers, walking out to this field and looking up. I just remember kind of waking up, like waking up out of anesthesia, looking up from the middle of this field. And then seeing up in the sky, not all that far up, maybe 300 feet, what I was calling the sky train. And it was a series of structured rectangular elements that were attached together or not attached together. I don't know, kind of like a train. And it made a sound as it went. And it was very typical movie UFO kind of sound. Kind of. And it was very, very much like my mind had been affected by it. Like I was in a state where I wasn't supposed to see this thing. And then it was like I was kind of having to fight my way back up. One time I fainted. My blood pressure was too low and I just fainted in the shower. And my family found me, laid out in the shower. Mm-hmm. And my mind interpreted that situation as being underwater. And I can remember thinking, something's wrong, something is not right. But the image I had of myself in my mind at the time was I was deep down in this black water and I was having to swim to the surface. And then as soon as I broke the surface, then I woke up. It was kind of the same feeling. And then there was the sky train. Nobody else saw it. I walked around to the blue. Hey, did you guys see anything? No. So, unusual experience.
Well, from everything I've read and heard, and granted, I haven't done that much research into UFOs, but we like to think of UFOs as being solid things.
We do like to think of that.
Possible. Well, from what you have described, I've never heard anything quite like this, but what you're describing makes me think of a paranormal experience, in that the way I describe it to skeptics or people who are not really familiar with paranormal investigation, I say that, there's some people that are very good at playing the violin. There are some people that can bake bread and have it rise really nicely. And there are some people that can see and hear spirits. And maybe in this situation and in perhaps other situations, there is some sort of cloaking device or some aspect of this unidentified flying object or the sky train that you could pick up on, but other people really couldn't?
I
That you were
think,
just a little more sensitive to it.
well, I don't think it was sensitive. I think I'm more resistant to the SCP.
It's the SCP drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm more resistant to somebody else's problem from
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
from the Hitchhiker's Guide. You know,
Gotcha.
you put an SCP field around something, and people will walk over it and around it and under it. They'll be, you know, their brain just will not take it in.
Not my problem.
Not my
I'm
problem.
just moving on.
Sure.
Yeah. So, since I so deeply hate anything that stunts my mind, that limits my ability to see or to understand or to perceive, I mean, it's a visceral hatred. So, you'll never find me doing any kind of drugs, alcohol, anything like that, just because that anything where my brain doesn't feel fully acute. Oh man, I don't want that at all. and so for some, I think that was kind of like a drug. You know, it's a matter of, okay, all you people down there watching baseball, you know, here's the whammy, and the whammy is that if you look up and you see anything, you just say, "Oh, time to go back to the baseball game."
Mm-hmm.
And and I think I just have a little bit of resistance to that. Or that DMT gene is kicking in again.
That's right.
No, that first thing makes sense to me, anyway.
Well, look, you know, non-technical authors sometimes come up with really good technical ideas. And the SCP field. Okay, unless you guys have anything to talk about, I guess I will call it a night and tell Sylvia how deeply appreciative I am of you being here. And
it was my pleasure, and I had a stone blast as usual.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you
we
so
loved
much for
having you
having me on again. I mean, this is really special to know that I'm the first person that's
first repeat.
Yeah, it's so cool. Thank you.
I'll guess Chris James will be the second repeat, and you know, we're still trying to get other people to come on. So if you know anybody that you think would enjoy doing this,
sure,
send them our info.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Dave, and I'll talk to you again soon, Sylvia.
All right. Wonderful. Have a lovely evening, guys.
You too. Take
Good
care.
night.
Bye.
Hello, this is Vic Hermanson again. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Rundown. There's just something about Sylvia that makes you think that all is right with the world. There's just something about her way of thinking, her speech, her thought patterns, that's just wonderful. The Paranormal Rundown is a production of myself, Vic Hermanson, Father Mike Birdsong, J.J. Johnson, and Dave Griffith, along with the invaluable help of Deacon Josh Birdsong. All the music you heard came from Lobo Loco, Smart Sound, or was simply in the public domain. Any media clips we used were used under the protection of the Fair Use Doctrine. If you have something to say about the Paranormal Rundown, something good, something bad, if you'd like to be a guest, if you know of a guest, or just simply want to shoot the breeze, write to us at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. Until November 1st, this is Vic Hermanson, signing off.
At last, everyone's gone. That makes it the most joyful time of the day. Say, Avalon, how about we practice our singing? Let's sing that song.
Oh joy.
All right, let's go. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3.
Sweet home Alabama,
Alabama.
where the skies are so
They
blue.
are so blue.
Sweet home Alabama,
Home Alabama.
Lord, I'm coming home to you. You know the rundown has those rabbits.
Those rabbits. And
And Dave and Vic and JJ too.
too.
Oh, the bird songs down in Georgia. Keep the demons feeling blue.
Feeling blue.
Sweet home Alabama. What?
What? What's that you say? Oh. She hates that song. Well, I guess that's a faux pas. Never mind.